Hi, are you one of those people that's really keen on your rights, especially when it comes to the privacy of your information? Well, then this video is for you. And even if it's not, you may find it interesting. So, over the past couple of decades, the idea of the cloud has been growing a lot. And it really reminds me of the old days when we had a cloud already. It was called servers. And you had a station that you could go to, and it was just a monitor and a keyboard, and you would log in there to the server, and then you could do all of your work on that station. And, that's basically pretty much the same thing as what they're talking about now. Pure cloud would be that. All you would have would be something that could run your operating system, and you wouldn't need a big machine like we have now. That's like legal size, or even the smaller notebook size ones. You could have a really small machine because you wouldn't necessarily need to have any moving parts. Now, you could have moving parts in it, but you wouldn't need to. So the idea is that everything that you own, whether it's software or data, would be stored in the cloud. Now, let me explain what the cloud is. The cloud is servers connected to the internet. So, like I said, it's the same thing. It's just that the connection is different. In the old days, when I was a young man, you were in the same building, generally speaking, as the server, unless you were at a university, or you're involved with the military or something like that, and that was ARPANET, which was the predecessor to the internet. So everything is remote. So, and that would basically be what, those Google devices, those Chromebooks, basically takes away all of the need for lots of space for software and for data, because it's all relegated to the internet. Now, you may say to yourself, well, that's good, right? Well, yeah, sometimes it can be good. But just like you can have problems where you lose your connection between your station and your server, you can lose your connection between your computer and the cloud or the servers, such as the internet going down in your area, or a trunk getting cut by somebody because they weren't paying attention to what was buried underneath, or electrical brownouts and blackouts, satellites not functioning correctly. There are all kinds of things that can cause you to lose connection to the cloud. And so obviously that's bad. Now, that by extension can mean that you can also be locked out of software that you are using. So imagine that you are a professional who relies heavily on specific software that's only available online, and you go to work one day, and maybe at an office or maybe in your home, and you discover you are unable to access that software. Maybe the server was hacked by criminals and they locked it all out with ransomware. Or maybe that server is experiencing some kind of a problem. It could be a physical problem, it could be malware, it could be lots of different options as far as what could be happening. So you can't work. Now, if you imagine that your livelihood relies entirely on accessing that software, and by extension, your data may also be stored online, you could be losing X number of dollars per hour. Now, if you are a small-time person, maybe you're going to be like, well, it's okay. I can catch up tomorrow. But if you're like really busy, you've got a big business or something like that, and you can't access your software, and worse yet, you also cannot access your data, well, you're screwed, right? You're losing potentially thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars every day because you cannot access your software and your data. And oh, by the way, if you think about it this way, if you can't access the software, but you can access your data, but you do not have alternative software that will allow you to access and use and manipulate your data, then it's the same as you not having access to your data because it's locked down by, say, proprietary files types, or some other thing that effectively is a lock. Now, it isn't really a lock, but if you are making some beautiful graphics on Adobe, and you can no longer access Adobe, and you've got your data, it doesn't matter whether the data is in the cloud, on a server somewhere else, or if it's on your computer. If you don't have other software that can use that same data, that's a serious problem. Now, I understand you're saying, Glenn, but you said this is about privacy and freedom, all that's, all my rights, Glenn. What are you talking about? Well, here's the thing. If you have your data on your computer, and you don't really want, for whatever reason, you don't want other people how did my battery get drained? Uh-oh, that's not good. Alright, if you don't want other people to be looking at your private data, it could be that you have, I'm not assuming here that you're a criminal, right? It could be just that you have got proprietary things that you don't want the general public to have access to, or you are working on something confidential or top secret even, or for some other reason, a legitimate reason, you don't want just anybody or even the government to be able to access that information. Like, say you are a journalist, or say you're a psychologist or psychiatrist, you don't want somebody just being able to waltz through your data because there's confidentiality. When your data is on your computer, it's protected by certain laws that say, without good reason, a judge cannot issue a warrant to seize your property and access your data. Now, the rules have been getting flimsier and flimsier as lawyers have come up with more and more ways to work around that protection. But, at least there is protection. They can't just walk in anytime they want to and access your data, take your data, delete your data, whatever. They have to have permission. And I'm not going to go into what I was talking about where those rights have been impinged upon by government lawyers. But it does happen. Okay, so what about when your private data is stored on somebody else's server in the cloud? Do you have the same rights? Well, the data is yours, but the server, the service as well, those don't belong to you. And thus, the same protections do not exist. And in fact, for many years now, I don't remember exactly when it was passed, but there was a change to the law that some smart-ass lawyers came up with that says that if we need to subpoena a third-party company to get access to your data, we can do so. But, here, and this is the part that I'm getting at that's newer. Okay, that part's old. The change is that previously, companies that were, shall we say, mindful of your privacy, mindful of your rights, would somehow signal to all of their clients that the government had done this, that the government was accessing your data, or that the government was spying on you through their service. Well, a gag order was created. And what I mean by a gag order is it's a ruling or a law that states that those companies, I'm being specific here, the companies that previously wanted to alert you to surveillance or accessing your private data can no longer legally do so unless they want to risk the wrath of the government cracking down on them. So some companies, they came up with these indirect signals, and the government cracked down on that. So now there's pretty much no way legally that a government that cares about your rights can tell you, and this is not just in America, this is in multiple nations where your rights have been thrown to the wayside by the government. And I understand in the case of somebody surveilling you because, oh, you're a criminal, you're a pedophile, or something like that. But the general public, I don't agree with that. So, and that's what they can do. They can, if your data is stored on somebody else's property, they don't need your permission, and the law that protects your data on your computer does not protect your data on somebody else's server or computer. In other words, with a proper warrant, they can go in, they can subpoena the company, or they can go to the company with a warrant, and they can say, okay, we need access to Glenn's data, all of it. We need to see everything that he's stored since the beginning of this sort of service. And unless the company feels it has a very legitimate reason to do so, they won't fight the government. They'll just give the data. And they won't, unless the government allows them to, they won't tell you or be able to even tell you that your data has been taken or that you are being surveilled. And that's the cloud. That's the problem. So if you have got pictures of your children and you don't want some political nutjobber taking those pictures and posting, oh look, here's a picture of his kids there and they're not wearing clothes, they're 1 year old, and oh my God, this is pedophilia. Well, obviously, these people don't care that parents sometimes think that their naked babies are cute. And it has nothing to do with pedophilia. It's just, it was, shall we say, a photo op moment when the baby was was very cute or doing something very interesting, and you wanted to record that, and you could not interrupt the natural flow of what the baby was doing to put some clothes on, because babies, when they're distracted like that, they stop doing what they were doing. I'm sure that people who care about their children and have had children understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't had kids, maybe you've done some babysitting and you've experienced the same thing. So you might have information stored on the cloud that is completely innocent, but in the wrong hands it can be distorted into looking like something nasty or sinister or vile or criminal. So when you use Apple iCloud, when you use Dropbox, when you use Google Drive, or any of these other services that save or back up your data to their service, and you rely on that as an alternative form of storage, you are giving up your rights, by and large, to having that data protected from intrusions. Now, I've been talking about the government, but hackers and criminals in general who can hire hackers can also access that data illegally without a warrant and cause all kinds of problems for you, up to and including stealing your identity and ruining your reputation. Now you're thinking, well, what can they do to me? I earn like $5 an hour. I earn minimum wage. I earn $7.25 or whatever it is, and I don't have any money saved up in the bank. What are they going to do to me? Well, you don't understand. Criminals have lots of different motivations. It isn't all about money. Yes, a lot of these organizations, their focus is ripping people off to get money, ripping companies off, ripping even governments off to get money. But they sometimes do things for other reasons, like being able to spread false messages without using their own names. Okay? Now, back in the days when the internet wasn't yet really a thing, and bulletin board services, which were basically, you had software that you would run on your own computer, and other people could call your computer through the telephone line, and they could then do things on your computer according to what was allowed on your BBS. I had been foolish enough to use the same password everywhere. I don't do that anymore. So if you hack my password on abc.com, it's not going to help you with any other website. Okay? But back in those days, all the BBSs that I was on used the same password except for the BBS that I ran. Yeah, that was not good. So this one guy decided, oh, okay, I'm gonna. He had his own BBS, and he decided that he was. I'm assuming that he was using his BBS to collect data, private data of other people, so that he could do what he did to me. So I'm pretty sure he did just do it to me. He would go on to bulletin board services that I was on, and who knows, maybe he, I don't know what else he did on bulletin board services that I wasn't on, but on the bulletin board services that I was on, he went on there and he posted these nasty messages attacking somebody. And I was suddenly having problems with the owners of these other BBSs. And I come to find out, oh, somebody hacked my account, and I traced it back to him. Yeah. So he didn't get any money from me. He was just using my name to post messages about somebody he didn't like. Now you think, oh, that's just a one-off. It's a 1 in a million thing that can happen, and it's not ever going to happen. Well, while I had my bulletin board service, there was a point at which my bulletin board service was down, and I set the accesses incorrectly to some temporary software that I was using, and a couple of guys who were criminally oriented, shall we say, they realized this, and they grabbed my database of users with all the passwords, and they started logging in under other people's names and causing trouble. So they were insulting people and stuff like that. It was like, wow, this person's suddenly completely different, and I was like, uh-oh. So then I had my assistant and we had to alter the software to force everybody to change their passwords when they logged on, which, yeah, so it was a problem, and it's not a one-off thing. It still happens today. There are people who hack email accounts so they can send out criminal messages. They will actually do things like create drafts and have a message saved in the draft file, where most people never look. And so they can go back and forth behind your back, the owner of that account. You still have access to your account, and they're communicating with each other through your draft folder, through an unsent email. Also, they can lock you out of your email account, which means that all the other accounts that are tied to your email account, because usually, when you want to create accounts on a lot of websites, they require the ability to do two-form authentication, which is to say, you make a password for the website, but you also give them a phone number or an email address that they can then contact you to verify that when you're logging on, it's really you and not somebody who has hacked your account. So if the person hacks hacks your email address, well, they can, every account that they can find of yours, they can hack because they've got control of the 2FA. The point here is that the more things that you save to the internet, to the cloud, the less control over and the fewer rights you have. You can even get locked out of access to that through reasons other than criminals and governments. It can just be temporary things, or say for example you're using some software that stores all of your data on the internet, or uses, like I mentioned before, a proprietary format, and you don't have alternative software to access it. You're locked out. Or say for example that you have everything stored on the cloud, and you change your phone number, and you lose access because of a hacker or something to your email, and you don't remember your reset thing or anything. You don't have any way. It will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to regain access to what you lost. You could permanently lose it. And this can be a heart-rending experience. I mean, imagine if you have a huge portfolio of videos or pictures or books that you have created, and then suddenly you have access to none of them. I mean, how would that make you feel? Or if you, as a programmer, all your stuff was stored online, you could suddenly no longer access it. That would be horrible. So your rights for data are important to protect, and it's becoming increasingly difficult because as far as Apple is concerned and Android are concerned, you have lost a lot of your rights when it comes to your software and data. A lot of companies have moved to this rental platform for software, which in my mind is completely ludicrous because they're charging way more money for the same thing that you had before, and you don't own that software. You're renting software. In the past, you could own software. So I never use rental software, and I don't recommend that you do so either, for some of the same reasons that I mentioned already, but also because I feel that if you're going to use that software, you should have the right to own that software. And companies are trying to increase their income for whatever reason. I'm sure that some of them have very legitimate reasons, like the amount of times that their software gets pirated. Yeah, it's just not a good thing. So consider what I've said, and hopefully you've learned something today. If, at the very least, you now understand that the cloud isn't the cloud. It's just a bunch of servers, which are very, very powerful computers. I forgot to mention this. Servers are very powerful computers that somebody else owns. Okay, so your data is being stored there. It's not stored somewhere magically in the cloud. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.